Jimmy Stewart. With tonight's guests, June Allison, Lucille Ball, Greer Garson, Red Buttons, Senator Barry Goldwater, LaWanda Page, Henry Fonda, Eddie Albert, Foster Brooks, George Burns, Tony Randall, Don Rickles, Rich Little, Janet Leigh, Milton Berle, Jesse White, Orson Welles, Mickey Rooney, and your roastmaster, Dean Martin. With tonight's Man of the Hour, Jimmy Stewart.
What a career this man has had. He first starred in pictures during that golden era of handsome leading men. Jimmy, there's very few of your kind left. Just you, Xavier Cugat, Lawrence Welk. He's shy. Last week back in Hollywood, he was having lunch with Dolly Parton, you know, when the waitress said, what would you like in your coffee? He said, nothing. He was too shy to say 2 lumps. I don't know of a nicer guy than him. He's the only person I know who would interrupt an orgy to ask if anybody wanted coffee or cake, you know? Last night I took Jimmy to see Hallelujah Hollywood here at the MGM Hotel. One dancer came out topless, so Jimmy ran up on the stage, tried to cover her up with his hat. Fortunately, he has a small head. At the hotel here, he has the room next to mine. And I know every time Jimmy is in a romantic mood, because I can hear his wife Gloria snoring. He's such a poor soul. Every night his wife makes him take out the garbage. And he lives in a hotel. There's a statue of Jimmy Stewart in the Hollywood Wax Museum, and the statue talks better than he does. One of my favorites. He just won about every honor there is. Most recently, the Golden Award on the Agva Entertainer of the Year show. He started making America laugh on TV 30 years ago, and they haven't stopped since. Ladies and gentlemen, the wonderful Mr. Milton Berle. Thank you. What a night. What a night. What a night. What a night.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Dino, I spoke to your doctor. It's okay. You're still alive. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we are honoring Jimmy Stewart, a man who has brought a new meaning to the word Valium. That's a smile, Jimmy. You look like a basset hound who forgot where he buried his bone. This man we are honoring, this darling of the menopause set, has been a giant in Hollywood for 40 years. When he walked through the MGM gates, starlets would follow him all over the lot. And now, years later, he still has the girls following him, but he can't remember what for. Today, this man is a sex symbol for women who no longer care. This man is a big star. He won an award for his great performance in Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, but he still doesn't know anything about politics. Really, I asked him, I said, what he thought of Tungsten Park. And he said, it's nice, but they should put in more benches. Okay, and now, who can forget his great performance in Rear Window? Who can forget it? Everybody. Jimmy, remember when you were in that Western where you saved that girl from the Indians, and then you pulled out your gun and shot 3 guys who were coming at you from both sides? You remember that? Yeah. You're full of bull. That was Randolph Scott. Slowing up. He takes vitamin E and his wife takes iron pills. So when he's ready, she's rusty. But Jimmy, look at me, baby, please. You should be very proud tonight. Look at all these great stars who showed up in your honor. Mickey Rooney, who still looks like the boy next door to the motion picture home. Now there's LaWanda Page, very talented, and she's very big in real estate. She moves into rich neighborhoods and starts ghettos. Jesse White. Sorry, LaWanda told me to say it that way. Tony Randall, who always has an expression on his face like he's smelling a gas leak. Henry Fonda, oh, beautiful. Remember Henry when you were 21 and you were matinee idol? Today, one matinee and he's idle for a month. George Burns, what a lover. His pacemaker is acting up, though. Every time he sneezes, his garage door opens. Senator Goldwater, I want to ask you, why is everybody picking on Jimmy Carter? He hasn't done anything.
Our next guest. The dictionary defines funny as comical, droll, or provoking laughter. Our next guest fits all of those definitions and more. Ladies and gentlemen, the First Lady of Television. You gotta hesitate when you say her name, because she is the First Lady. Miss Lucille Ball.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Dean. Thank you very much. I'm very proud to be here this evening honoring my good friend Jimmy Stewart. I've been Jimmy's neighbor for over 15 years, and I know him as a shy, home-loving man. That's why I'm shocked that he's even here tonight. I've never seen him up this late. Really, every morning you can find Jimmy out in back of his house where he has his beautiful, wonderful, sensational vegetable garden. And you know, he is so gentle, he can't bear to hurt a thing. He doesn't even spray the destructive insects. True. I saw him on his hands and knees lecturing a snail. He's such a thoughtful and considerate neighbor. In order not to disturb anyone, he has his New Year's Eve party at 2:30 in the afternoon. In July. Things are so quiet around his house, the city made it an honorary hospital zone. But he's always been like that. Even in the early days when we started in pictures together, he told me that his idea of a romantic evening was soft lights, sweet music, and champagne. No girl, just soft lights, sweet music, and champagne. Let me put it this way. Next to Jimmy Stewart, Fred McMurray is electrifying. Jimmy is so moral. He's the only man I know who goes into the confession booth and can't think of a thing to say. He has to borrow somebody else's sins. To show you what I mean. As somebody just said, we arrived in Vegas last night and we went to see a show, and it turned out to be a nude review. And while the naked girls were dancing on stage, Jimmy kept nudging me, asking, when does the juggler come on? But in all the years I've known Jimmy Stewart, I found one thing to be true. He's just the same now as he was before he became a star. A decent, warm-hearted, wonderful guy. I adore you, James.
Miss Lucille Ball, ladies and gentlemen. You know, it is a pleasure to introduce an old friend, the popular senator from Arizona. Barry Goa! Thank you, Dean. And thanks for inviting me to share this evening with our mutual friend Jimmy Stewart. And let me tell you, it's cold in the east. Billy Carter is very impressed with the annual snowfall in Buffalo. 3 months, 3 months each year, it's the only city with a head on it. I just got so bad the other night in Washington, there was a little nip in the air, and Dean Martin drank it. Now, people all over the country keep talking about legalizing gambling, and I thought we already had it. It's called Election Day. But speaking of losers, the last time I saw Dean and Jimmy Stewart together, they were in my home state of Arizona. They came over there to make a movie they called Bandolero. And in the movie, Dean and Jimmy were lost in the desert. The horses were gone, their lips were parched, their tongues were swollen, and they crawled up to a water hole. And that's when the director said, "Cut," and called in Dean's stuntman to drink the water for him. I've always respected Jimmy Stewart for his patriotism, and also because he's a very concerned citizen. And Jimmy, in response to your sincere interest, I'm happy to tell you that the Senate has just drafted a new anti-crime bill. Unfortunately, on the way to the House, it was stolen. Jimmy, again, it's been a long time since Mr. Smith goes to Washington. And from where I sit, it seems that things have changed a bit in Congress. We can see much more clearly now. For one thing, nobody has to sit behind Bella Abzug and her hat anymore. And after all these years in Washington, I now realize what it takes to become the president. Apparently, it helps to have a brother who sits at a gas station drinking beer all day. When I was campaigning in that razor-thin election in 1964, I should have told everyone that Dean was my brother. Jimmy and I share many interests. We are both pilots and aviation enthusiasts. Thank you. In fact, this year is kind of an anniversary for Jimmy. 50 years ago, Jimmy made his first airline flight across the country, and just last week they delivered his missing luggage. Jimmy's too much a modest man to talk about his exploits during World War II, but I'd like you to know Jimmy's entitled to wear 12 different medals, including the coveted Distinguished Flying Cross, and he's here tonight without any of those medals. He left them all at home, pinned on his pajamas. Jimmy, I must say, it's been both a pleasure and a privilege to be with you two tonight. For in you, and I say this with some bias, can be found some of the outstanding qualities, Jim, of three of our great Republican presidents, Abraham Lincoln, Calvin Coolidge, and Gerald Ford. And by that I mean you're tall and lanky and a man of few words and a rotten golfer. You know, there's an old saying that behind every man's success is a woman. Our next guest has known Jimmy Stewart from the very beginning of his career. She served as his inspiration. She encouraged him, supported him, and her belief in his talents are responsible for what he is today. Here she is, the epitome of femininity, Miss Gladys Ormsby.
With your phony flattery. I know your type. Yeah. You're the type who thinks that women are just toys.
If I wind you up, you'll go away, won't you?
You'll never... Will you just sit down and wait your turn? You will never possess my body, you rigatoni Romeo. I have scruples.
I'll wear a long coat and nobody will notice.
Would you just sit down? You know, I don't trust any man. You're all designing and devious. Not after what Jimmy Stewart did to me. I am the woman who made his career possible. The one who had undying faith in his future. And do you know what this ungrateful cad did to me? He left me behind.
Yeah, a lot of men left you behind.
But at an animal shelter? How could the man I adored do that to me? Oh, Jimmy. You were the man of my life. Jimmy, you were my whole life, my knight in shining armor. You were my whole reason for being. Do you know, ladies and gentlemen, that when we walked together, my bosom swelled with pride?
I think you've developed a slow leak myself.
Who crawls in the night?
Keep going, you're getting close.
Would you please sit down? Now that I've got your attention, you're going to hear the true story of a woman scorned.
Why me?
You'll find out. It all started when Jimmy Stewart was playing football at Princeton, and I was a cheerleader. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I was a pom-pom girl. For your information, Mr. Martin, pom-poms are fuzzy, round things that dangle from a stick.
What do you do with a pom-pom?
You take your pom-poms and you throw them over your shoulder, Mr. Martin.
I'll believe that when I see it. You know, a lot of your friends couldn't be here tonight. Oh, are they lucky? So they sent some wires, and here's one. Dear Mr. Stewart, sorry we could not work you into our TV series playing your accordion, but you must realize the high professional standards we maintain. Signed, The Gong Show. Here's one from Jimmy Stewart. From Jimmy Stewart. It says, Dear Dean, when do I go on? I'm getting sleepy. Here's a telegram from the Vice President of the United States. I didn't like the way the invitation was addressed. At the Vice President's mansion, I am listed as Fritz Mondale, not occupant. Here's one from all the members of the dais. Had we known that we could have sent telegrams, we wouldn't have been here. And last minute, I don't care what anybody says, Jimmy. I love the way you talk. Signed, Porky Pig. Nobody knows a leading man like a leading lady. So we invited a lovely lady who was one of Jimmy's co-stars at MGM. Ladies and gentlemen, a wonderful, most respected actress, the beautiful Miss June Alice.
Oh, I'm very happy to be here tonight, especially for Jimmy. But really, I think you're honoring the wrong person. It's Jimmy's wife, Gloria, who deserves to be honored. And I think I'm entitled to say this, because I played Jimmy's wife in many movies. We were married so many times that when they rerun our old movies, I don't get residuals. I get alimony. In every picture we made, I was the wife Jimmy left behind. In the Glenn Miller story, he traveled with his band, and in the Stratton story, he was always playing baseball, and he was overseas in Strategic Air Command. And the only time anyone got to see me on the screen was when I got to read a letter. You know, I didn't really have a husband. I had a pen pal. And in the Glenn Miller story, I was always home worrying that Jimmy might have an affair with this sexy band singer. Well, you could hardly blame me. Who knew Doris Day would turn out to be a virgin? Well, I will say this. Jimmy took his acting very seriously. When we made the baseball picture, the Stratton story, Jimmy ate, drank, and slept baseball. He didn't win an Academy Award as a ball player, but he did receive an honor that thrilled him even more. He got to get his picture on a bubble gum card. If for nothing else, you have to love Jimmy for being such a quiet and mild-mannered person. And nobody was more surprised than I when Jimmy became a bomber pilot in World War II. Gloria tells me even today he can still handle a B-36 and a B-47. Not the airplanes, the vitamins. But when I count my blessings, I'll always remember how fortunate I was to work with the talented stars at Metro. But I never met a more talented or a nicer man, or one I love so very much, than Jimmy Stewart.
Miss June Nelson. It's with pride I introduce our next guest, a brilliant actor and truly one of the all-time greats. Ladies and gentlemen, Mighty Mick himself, Mr. Mickey Rooney.
Jimmy, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not standing in a hole down here. But I want to thank you, Dean, for the very nice introduction. I'm very happy, needless to say, to be here for the great Jimmy Stewart, because I happen to be a good friend of his. I'm not sure, however, that he's a friend of mine. Every time I walked past him backstage, he was singing Short People. Short is beautiful. For one thing, I get a lot more out of dancing with Raquel Welch than you do. I happen to know that he had another problem, Mr. Stewart did. He had to go through life with a terrible handicap. You see, he's half Irish and half Scotch, and half of him wants to get drunk and the other half doesn't want to pay for it. But in spite of his many problems, he did become what we call a real superstar. And if Jimmy liked you, if he liked you, you knew that you had it made. I made it with wardrobe mistresses, makeup ladies, married 4 starlets. 2 of them I didn't make it with. I can tell you this, I have never denied going out with the ladies, though, Mr. Stewart. But that was just a phase, you might say, friends. It lasted for about 30 or 40 years. But I'll tell you, Dean, Jimmy had some leading ladies who were actually what we call beauties. He even made a movie with one of my ex-wives.
Who hasn't?
Look, I could have stayed married to one woman, but I wanted a second opinion. Jimmy was such a square. You want to know how much of a square Mr. Stewart was?
How much of a square was it?
He had a crush on a girl in one of his movies. The producer said to Jimmy, "Jimmy, you can use my casting couch." So he went in and went to sleep on it. He was a square then, and he hasn't changed a bit, friends. He thinks pot is Tupperware. It's funny how things do turn out, though. We were just 2 fellows, guys who shared the golden era of motion pictures many years ago, and lucky enough to make a lot of money. I spent mine on marriages and gambling, and then I spent it on some silly things. Jimmy spent his on real estate, friends, and we've shared a lot in the past, and I'd like to say we're still sharing. You see, some of my ex-wives are living in his buildings. Thank you, Jimmy. God love you.
Now, someone who has become one of our regular roasters, a lovely lady with a big warm heart, Her heart is so warm that she can fricassee you with her tongue. Miss LaWanda Page. LaWanda Page is here.
Now you may wonder what an ebony princess like me is doing up here with all these honky sports. Well, NBC hired me to do the color commentary. Eat your heart out, Phyllis George. Black may be beautiful, but scarce on this dais. Keep your hands to yourself, you tipsy turkey. I know where your head is at.
Good, I was wondering why I left it.
And you people been saying what a big star Jimmy Stewart is. Well, I got news. Down in the cement at the Chinese Theater, his footprints have been retired. Jimmy Stewart has been replaced by my side of the family, Jimmy Walker. Dang, oh my, woo! I heard what you said, Milton Berle. Yeah, you, Mr. Television. If you could steal hubcaps like you do jokes, you'd be a star in my neighborhood. And you can't afford to talk you, Mickey Rooney. Honey, after Short Stuff here saw Roots, he went to Ireland to trace his family tree and found out it was a stump. Honey, you might as well know the only reason you're here is to make red buttons look tall. Senator Barry Goldwater, you getting to be an old joke, too. Still wanting to be president. Daddy, you got about as much chance as the Pope has for being arrested for wife beating. Sure, you still popular in Arizona, but what does a cactus know? And talking about cactus, brings us to that cactus-faced old rummy Foster Brooks. Foster, if Count Dracula ever bit your neck, he'd get a Bloody Mary. June Allison, I don't know what you're doing here with all these dirty old drunks. You were always so sweet and pure and innocent. You make Donnie and Marie look like Bonnie and Clyde. And there's that old buzzard George Burns laughing. He's so old, he carries potty grip on dates in case he wants to nibble on a girl's ear. Janet Leigh is laughing now. But wait till I move in next door to her. In that movie, Sicko. Doing all that screaming. You taught me one thing, honey. Never shave your legs in a shower. Now that brings me to the man of the hour. Now, I can't say anything bad about you, Skinny. Except your mama ought to fed you better. Ain't enough meat on you to make a sick dog a bowl of soup. You look like a side order of spare ribs that's been gummed by the Harlem Globetrotters. Just one more thing, Mr. Stewart. And I got to tell it like it T.I. is. You really are a nice man and a cool actor. And I'm your fan. Thank you. God bless.
Our next guest is that beautiful actress and a dear friend of mine. She is not only a fine performer, but she's one of the best tennis players in Beverly Hills. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Janet Leigh.
I can't tell you how truly happy I am to have been asked to this Jimmy Stewart roast. He is a very dear man. You know, some years ago, we made a Western together called The Naked Spur. And I was all excited because I had a crush on Jimmy, and the script called for us to play a love scene. I pursed my lips for a burning kiss. Jimmy moved closer to me, reached out, and shook my hand. Well, I don't have to tell you that I was a little upset by this, so when we broke for lunch, I spoke to his wife, Gloria, about it, and she said, well, what are you complaining about? I had to play spin the bottle to get him to kiss me on our honeymoon. Now, June Allison said, she had the same trouble with love scenes. When they made the Glenn Miller story, she said by the time he got through playing in the mood, she wasn't. Then I called Marlena Dietrich, who also did a Western with Jimmy, Destry Rides Again. And she said, Janet, why don't you do what I did? Wear an off-the-shoulder holster. That way he can't help but notice you. Your 45s will be right next to your 36s. And then I realized the secret of this sensational kisser. All those years of stammering and stuttering and saying, wah, 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 well, made the muscles in his lips so strong that they were like steel-belted radials. I mean, forget about your Burt Reynolds or Paul Newman. When it comes to kissing, Jimmy Stewart has the pucker power.
In introducing our next guest, I can think of nothing more impressive than saying, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Henry Fonda.
Thank you, Dean. You know, I've really been looking forward to this evening, because I can't think of a fellow I'd like more to say nice things about than my friend Jim Stewart. Jim and I arrived in Hollywood 43 years ago, two young actors trying to make it in pictures. Each of us so skinny we could ride in a buggy in the whip socket. The two of us only cast one shadow. Over the years, we made some movies together. One of them was Fire Creek. I played a bad guy, and Jim had to gun me down. Before that, we did one called On Our Merry Way. We played two musicians who were so bad that everybody wanted to gun us down. And just a few years back, we worked together in the Cheyenne Social Club. We were a couple of cowpokes, moseying around one of those typical establishments of the Old West, where men are men and they paid women to prove it. Of course, Jim had some experience with this kind of movie years ago when he made Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, about another house of ill repute, Congress. I guess knowing how far Jim and I go back is probably the reason why I was asked to come on tonight and show you some of the unique special qualities that have made Jim unique in the world of movies. The subtle nuances that belong only to him. In other words, the great moments of James Stewart on film. In Jim's first film, Rosemary, we get a good indication of that Stewart magic to come. Here we see a young and very thin Stewart, a prisoner on horseback, being taken in by a Royal Canadian Mountie, Nelson Eddy, for having killed another Mountie.
And I'm calling you. Will you answer too?
You know, women are funny. They don't seem to understand you gotta have some excitement.
I'll take Sis there, for instance. She's been plugging away at that music ever since I can remember. I wouldn't work that hard for anybody.
As I looked at it, I realized it may not have been such a great moment for us, the viewers, but considering how skinny Stewart was, sure a great moment for the horse. Beats the hell out of carrying Orson Welles. In a film called Born to Dance, we are blessed by another of Jim's gifts, his voice. In it, he introduces a Cole Porter song as he sings to the lovely Eleanor Powell.
We live so grand at the game, so carefree together, that it does seem a shame that you can't see your future with me, 'cause you'd be all so easy to love.
Well, I think we found the only thing that's thinner than Jim, his voice. But undaunted, he kept right on singing. This time to Katharine Hepburn in his award-winning movie, The Philadelphia Story.
Somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, there's a land that I heard of once in a lullaby. Somewhere, and the dreams that I dare to do.
Don't stop, Mikey. Keep crooning.
In this scene, Jim is demonstrating two things: his incredible strength in picking up Miss Hepburn, and the fact he's no Judy Garland. But he did a wonderful impression of Dean.
Is that an alcoholic beverage?
Yes, why?
For me?
No, it's for Tracy. Why, do you want one?
Listen, I'd sell my grandmother for a drink. You know I love my grandmother.
Well, Uncle Willie's around in the pantry doing weird and wonderful things. Tell him I said one of the same.
Mind if I make it two?
That's between you and your grandmother.
For the most part, Jim exhibited a whimsical, likable quality in his films, as evidenced in It's a Wonderful Life, Shop Around the Corner, Harvey. But here in this sequence from Stratton's Story, he exhibits a hidden strain of shocking violence.
Oh, come on, put it right in here. Run over the plate.
Okay.
Right in here.
That's the kind of violence that could make Charlie Bronson look like a cocktail waitress. But if there's one thing that sums up the Stewart persona, it's his physical grace. We've heard a lot of jokes about his speech pattern, but his blitheness of movement is undeniable. And here we see it with Lana Turner in Ziegfeld Girl.
Dames is just like traffic. Sometimes you gotta stop, sometimes you gotta go.
Yeah, but a smart driver don't beat the lights. Okay. So you know your own strength.
You ain't exactly anemic yourself.
Show's out at 11:30.
I'll be there at 11:28. And if I have to push one of them fancy limousines out of the way with my truck, I can do that too.
Jim, you and I are survivors of what's been called the golden age of Hollywood. We've come a long way in a lot of years together, and just think, one day we might make it into the Hollywood Wax Museum together.
Ladies and gentlemen, with great respect and love, I give you Mr. George Byrne.
Thank you, Dean, for that sweet introduction. You know, you got to give Dean credit. When he has a show to do, it's amazing how he gets the job done. For instance, he's got to introduce everybody on this dais. Believe me, it's not easy. He's got to stand up to do it. In fact, the doctor gave Dean 1 day to stop drinking. Dean picked January the 20th, 1999. Look, I know at these roasts you're supposed to say terrible things about the guest, but how can you say anything nasty about Jimmy Stewart? He's a doll. I'd even like to take him out dancing. So nice, I'd even let him lead. Of course, I wouldn't try it in Florida. Imagine me trying to be funny by insulting Jimmy Stewart. He's so happily married, so quiet, so gentle, so tall, so contented, so pleasant. There's not a laugh in that group. I can't insult Jimmy Stewart. It's not my nature. I like to say nice things about everybody. I can't even insult Don Rickles. Now, Milton Berle I can insult. Yeah, I'd enjoy insulting Milton Berle. I think I will. Last week I ran into his wife and I said, "Ruth, I know you and Milton have been married a long time. How's your sex life?" She says, "Are you kidding? Milton gets more laughs in bed than he gets when he plays Las Vegas." But I still have another problem. What to say about Jimmy Stewart? He managed to live 50 years in Hollywood and never had his character blemished. He's a perfect citizen. Whenever there's a wild party with the booze and the girls, when Jimmy hears about it, it makes him mad because he's never invited. I love Jimmy because he's so casual and so easygoing, and he talks slow and he listens slow. And he eats slow, and he walks slow, and yeah, he does everything slow. By the way, Jimmy was supposed to play God in the picture I did, but the only reason they took me is that the studio saved a fortune. We all know that God created the earth in 6 days. Well, it would have taken Jimmy at least 6 months. You know, Jimmy has been an actor all his life, but I started acting only about 2.5 years ago. And Jimmy, I hope this doesn't upset you, but I found out that acting is very, very easy. If you're doing a scene where you knock on somebody's door, and if somebody says, "Come in," if you walk in, you're a good actor. If a man says, "Come in," and you stay out in the hall, that's bad acting. I'm a good actor. I always walk in. And some of the movies that they're doing today, you can even do it lying down. And you don't have to put your clothes on. But you're never embarrassed because there's always a girl next to you to talk to. I never go to porno movies, but I'd be willing to pay $5 just to see Jimmy Stewart with his clothes off. I'd even pay $1 to see him without a tie. Well, Jimmy, I'm delighted to be here. And what I said still goes. After the show, I'd still like to take you out dancing. And you're such a nice man, I promise not to dance close.
Some of the greatest moments we've ever had in motion pictures were brought to us by our next guest. All you have to do is think of such movies as Random Harvest, Blossoms in the Dust, Madame Curie, and of course, the unforgettable Mrs. Miniver. And you think of only one person. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to present Miss Greer Garson.
Thank you, Dean. Thank you. I'm just delighted to join in honoring, in our own peculiar way, one of the nicest gentlemen in slow business. What can one say about Jimmy Stewart? His career proves that he who hesitates is found. Here's a perfect case of a man who brought glamour to the drama with a stammer. I used to wonder why, Jimmy, when we were both working at MGM Studio, why we never made a picture together. And then I realized that it wouldn't be a well-balanced team, because I talk too much, and you don't talk at all. Jimmy, you could have cleaned up in silent movies. Everybody makes fun of the way he talks. But shucks, gee whiz, golly, if Jimmy started talking like the rest of us ordinary folk, hundreds of impressionists would be unemployed. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, imitations of his mannerisms as an actor are familiar stuff. But it would be quite a challenge for anyone to try to duplicate Jimmy Stewart's range of real lifestyles. He's modern, so he goes often with his lovely Gloria to Africa on safari, hunting not with guns, but with cameras. Nice? He's old-fashioned, so he goes to church on Sundays. He's the only Air Force general I know who hobnobs on theater stages with a 6-foot invisible rabbit. A deep bow to his royal shyness. And for this courtly occasion, we offer a small poem. Begging your indulgence. I call it Ode to a Norman Rockwell character. In the golden years of Hollywood, MGM was stacked with leading men who had certain things that Jimmy Stewart lacked. No shoulders broad, no muscled brawn. He was skinny and long like a cable. In fact, you'd have to take 3 of him to make just one Clark Gable. So what has he got, this Jimmy of ours, that somehow sets him apart? The certain appeal of the honest and real that works its way straight to your heart. He's sweet, kind, and shy. He's our favorite good guy, so why do I have to say more? Though his hair's gray, you see, yet he always will be America's boy next door.
Our guest of honor had a glittering record in World War II. He was one of the few officers in the history of the Air Force to receive the Distinguished Service Medal for outstanding service to the United States, but he never could have achieved that honor without the help of a great fellow aviator who flew with him for 20 missions. As a surprise to Jimmy, that fabulous flyboy is here tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Foster Brooks.
Thank you, Dolly Parton.
Sorry, but I'm not Dolly Parton.
You're not half as sorry as I am. What's the point spread on Dolly this week? It's a real thrill for me to be here to pay tribute to my old flying buddy, Jimmy Stewart. Jimmy Stewart. The tall, skinny guy over here. I can still recall the day I first met Jimmy. It was at the air base in England. We were in a briefing room, walking around in our briefs. But Jimmy and I became good buddies, and as two handsome young flyers, naturally we were surrounded by adoring service women. That's what I was born for, service women. I remember Jimmy was dating a whack, a wave, and a waff, and I wound up with a woof. I always got the dog. But then the bugles of war sounded. And on our first mission, Jimmy was the pilot and I was the navigator. I was I was the one with the SO road map. Using all my skills, I guided us to the target, and we bombed the heck out of it. Unfortunately, the aerial photographs showed that we wiped out Trenton, New Jersey. Nobody's perfect. After that, Jimmy made me his tail gunner, and he even offered me a bonus. Every time I shot down some Messerschmitts, he gave me a Messerschlitz. And I was doing real good until on one mission we were in the thick of battle, and Jimmy yelled, "Action at 2 o'clock! Action at 2 o'clock!" I opened fire at 2 o'clock and shut off my wristwatch.
To Foster Brooks. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome the co-star of the popular television series Switch, Mr. Eddie Elba.
It's a pleasure for me to be here honoring my dear friend Jimmy tonight. Now, you've heard the other members of this dais here say that he's a fine actor. That's true. We become friends. We met one day at a party, and that was when we got together on the gardening. He found out I was an avid gardener.
You're Ava Gardner? You've changed.
No, an avid gardener, Dean. It means that we have green thumbs.
Hey, I have a green thumb too, Eddie.
Yeah?
Yeah, from picking olives out of those martinis there.
We're both organic gardeners. We love gardening. I must say that he raises some wonderful stuff over there in his garden. His vegetables are prize examples. He raised a tomato so juicy, a gopher bit in it and was drowned. He sent me some vegetables from his garden. Let me try these. Woolworths. He sent me, oh, this is marvelous. He sent me some vegetables from his garden. I ate organic peppers, organic onions, organic cucumbers, and the next morning I had organic heartburn. He's enthusiastic. He helps me with my gardening. This one morning, about 3 o'clock, he called and he said, Eddie, can you come over? Something's been eating my asters. He's shy and he's decent. I was showing him how to cross-pollinate 2 flowers, and during the process, he looked the other way. Every fall, when the crop is in, Jimmy harvests bushels of corn, tomatoes, peppers, carrots. He loads them into a station wagon, drives to the poor section of the town, and sells them. The flower he's proudest of, seriously, though, is his wife, Gloria. On their wedding anniversary, Jimmy gave his wife, Gloria, something very enriching, down to earth, a 50-pound sack of Bandini. But truthfully, you know that I'm joking here, Jim. It's all been in good fun, and I'd like to use just a second or two here to tell you that, in my opinion, you're one of the most decent and sweetest guys we got in our town. I'm proud to be your friend, and that's not Bandini.
Red button. Why? The question tonight is why are we giving this man a dinner? He's some of the biggest actors in the history of the world. Never got a dinner. Orson Welles, who said to Anita Bryant, "Stop picketing me. What I am is a thespian." Never got a dinner. Jimmy Cagney, who said to Mickey Mouse, "You dirty rat." Never got a dinner. Charlton Heston, who said when he came down from Mount Sinai with the 10 Commandments, funny, he didn't look like George Burns. Never got a dinner. John Travolta, who said my Saturday night fever was nothing compared to my Sunday morning rash. Never wound up with a dinner. This man gets a dinner. Rudolph Valentino, the silent screen star who once said, those words are as true today as they were then. Never got a dinner. Telly Savalas, who said, "I'd give it all up. Fame, money, glory, if I could only have a little dandruff." Never got a dinner. Earl Holliman, a policewoman, who said, "The thing I like about Pepper is her shaker." Never got a dinner. Sidney Poitier, who said to Paul Newman, "Let's do one called Butch Cassidy and the Sunburn Kid." Never got a dinner. Dolly Parton, one who said to a doctor, "Are you sure it's a chest cold?" Burt Reynolds, the sex symbol of the movies, who said, "I owe it all to one great part."
Well, here's a fellow who's a fine actor, and I'm sure you all know he was Felix on the hit show The Odd Couple, and now you see him every week as Judge Franklin on his own show. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Tony Randall.
As long as I'm here, I may as well use this opportunity to air a few grievances I have, Mr. Stewart. Some I've held long in my heart. I confess I'm jealous of Jimmy Stewart. It isn't quite fair, it seems to me. I've studied to be an actor. I've worked long and hard. My parents sacrificed that I could improve my diction and speak, in the words of Shakespeare, trippingly on the tongue. This man sounds as though he has a mouthful of rice pudding. And he's a star. I can recite the entire soliloquy of Hamlet in the amount of time it takes him to say, well, gee whiz. It's excruciating to me. Hear him talk in the movie. I saw one film in which he speaks so slowly that by the time the film was over, we were in the sequel. Why is this man a star? Where's the glamour? Where's the personality? Somebody once told me that Jimmy once tried to write his autobiography as told to. Nobody would listen. But once you see Jimmy Stewart on the screen, you'll never forget him. All his performances are exactly the same. He always plays himself, you see, which is deadly. He always plays himself, which is deadly. Once you see Jimmy Stewart on the screen, you'll never forget it. You have a telegram for me?
Tony, you can use a cigar. You may get a laugh.
I'd like to tell Mr. Burl what to do with this cigar. You were right, I got a laugh. I also got a kiss. Once you've seen Jimmy Stewart on the screen, friends, you'll never forget it. All his performances are exactly the same. Jimmy Stewart, you see, always plays himself, which is deadly.
Ladies and gentlemen, good man, Mr. Rich Little, funny man.
Jim, it seems to me that you know, and the thing is that
what are you trying to say? What are you trying to say? What are you
well,
trying to say?
Jim, I am grateful to you because you keep people like me working. No, I'm serious. And you're probably imitated by more people than anybody in show business. And the reason is, it's so easy to do. I mean, anybody could do Jimmy Stewart. Even you could do you. Now, Jim, I don't want to brag or anything, but I've noticed lately that your Jimmy Stewart is just, well, it just isn't what it used to be, you know? It's slipping away. Now, would you stand up for a minute, Jim? Let me give you a few pointers here. Now, the first thing you got to do is put your hand out like this and just kind of shake it like that. That's good. That's good. That's good. Now, I want you to kind of look through the tops of your eyes and give it that.
Like that?
No, kind of squint them a little bit and bend over just a bit there. That's it. Now, I want you to say...
I feel terrible.
How do you think we feel? We've been watching you for 30 years do this. That's good. That's good. That's good. That's good. That little nose thing was great. That gives you a little character there. Now, I want you to put the hand out, look through the tops of your eyes and say, wow. Just like that. Wow. Try that. Wow. No good. That's terrible. I mean, that is bad. Did you ever hear such a bad Jimmy Stewart in your life? What do you say, audience? Can you do better than that? Huh? Everybody stand up. Come on, I'll give you a chance to adjust your shorts. I want you to put your hands out. Now look through the tops of your eyes, and at the count of 3, everybody go, wow. Ready? 1, 2, 3. You know, I was going to do the voices of a lot of stars that couldn't be here tonight. But I'm not going to do that now. I would like to do the voices of a number of stars who are glad they couldn't be here tonight. For instance, John Wayne. Don't get me wrong, Pilgrim. I think you're a hell of an actor. But when it comes to Westerns, forget it. We made a picture called Liberty Valance. This guy doesn't know the first thing about Westerns. First day on the set, he comes to me and he says, Duke, is it true the harder you pull the trigger, the further the bullet will go? Jimmy, here's somebody who is here tonight. You know, Jimmy and I first started out in pictures together. We were roommates. Back in those days, we were so poor. Well, I remember one Christmas, all we had left to eat was a large jar of aspirin. Didn't fill us up, but I'll tell you one thing. I haven't had a headache in over 37 years. But I don't agree with John Wayne because I think some of Jimmy Stewart's best moments on the screen, Westerns. I mean, particularly when he's pursuing somebody like Dan Duryea or Stephen McNally, or Robert Ryan. When he kind of comes up with them and goes, all right, hold it right there, mister, hold it. Hold it. Now pay attention to this, you could learn something here. All right, now turn around real slow like. Now keep your hands where I can see them. Keep them up there. Keep them up. Oh, that's good. That's good. That's fine. That's good.
Our next guest is one of the most familiar faces in show business. He's been in many movies, appeared in a lot of Broadway plays, but you know him best as the loneliest washer repairman in town. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Maytag, Jesse White.
I'm really very flattered to be here at this wonderful tribute to my dear friend, Jimmy Stewart. We've been friends for over 35 years. And the amazing thing is that he still looks the same, old. The ironic thing is that our backgrounds are so different. I grew up in the rough part of Akron, Ohio. But Jimmy was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. And he talks like it's still there. At the time we were rehearsing that wonderful Broadway play, Harvey. Dean, I don't know if you saw that play, but Harvey was an invisible rabbit.
You kidding? I just saw him last night.
When the play was a big hit, one of the biggest hits in the history of the theater, and Jimmy and I had a lot of fun on the road. Even then, Jimmy was very easygoing and very generous, and people really took advantage of him. One night, Jimmy gave a bellhop a $100 bill and said to bring us a couple of hamburgers and get something for yourself. Kid came back with the food. Jimmy asked for his change. The bellhop said, "You told me to get something for myself. I got a wristwatch." Jimmy, I'll never forget how nice you were about that. He said to the bellhop, "Would you mind if I call you once in a while and ask what time it is?" I'm going to say something, and I mean it really from the bottom of my heart. You were responsible for bringing me out to Hollywood when we did the Harvey movie, and you're really one of the nicest guys I've ever had the pleasure of working with in our business. And I say this very sincerely. If at any time your Maytag needs fixing, call Sears.
Jesse White. One of the pleasant surprises on the NBC network this year is CPO Sharkey. The shows have been consistently funny. It's gaining in popularity and is a big hit on NBC this season. One of the reasons for that is the star of the show. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the world of hostility and abuse, Mr. Don Rickles.
Thank you very much. I'm in awe to see the great Jimmy Stewart here. I just wonder how long he'll be able to stay awake. There are so many great stars here to honor you. By the way, thank you, Dean, for your kind words. You've always been a good friend to me, and I appreciate it. Really know Frank Sinatra, huh? Mentioned your name to him the other day, and he just drove right over my face. Anyway, I'd like you to know that some of the great people, as you can see, sitting on our dais, the lovely June Allison. There you are, June. You're, what are you up at, 83? Wanda Page, it's so good to see you. They have you on most of the rows because somebody has to dust the table. Saw Red Fox the other day, just standing on the corner going, "I'm Red Fox." Keeps trying to pass himself off as a mulatto fighter pilot. Ruth Buzzy, I've said this time and time again. Surgery, definite surgery. You're the only woman I know that doesn't need the face fixed. The arms are bad arms. Keeps stooping over looking for bananas. George Burns, some 80-odd years young. Sits in his little car singing to little girls in the park. "Hi, I'm George Burns." You're going to be put in a home, George. Starting to annoy little people in the park. Anyway, some of the great stars are here. Senator Barry Goldwater, the great senator. Too bad you weren't president, but then you'd have no time to do this. But I do tell you, Eddie Albert, what a great actor you are. I've seen your lovely wife in Viva Zapata just laying around the rocks making tacos. And of course, Henry Fonda. Jesse. You were so great. When Tyrone Power and you just jumped on your horse and went right through the window trying to get out of Missouri. It's all over though, Hank.
And Lucille Ball, who said to Gary Morton, as Henry Kissinger said to his wife Nancy, where did you get this?
Well, once again, it's my great pleasure to present the giant in the entertainment field, a man who never fails to give these roasts a touch of class. Ladies and gentlemen, my dear friend, Mr. Orson Welles.
Thank you, Dean. It's always a pleasure to be back in one of these celebrity roasts of yours where a gang of jolly, fun-loving people get together to use charm, wit, good humor for one shining purpose, to destroy another human being. I see nothing much has changed since my last appearance on this dais. Milton Berle is still looking around and jotting down everybody's jokes. I see Senator Goldwater sitting there, still trying to dream up a way to keep the Panama Canal in American hands. This evening we're assembled to honor Jimmy Stewart, who is not only a fine actor, but whose very image as a man seems to be typical of all that America used to stand for. And I say used to because today's screen heroes are a far cry from that gentle, non-violent fellow Jimmy has been portraying throughout his long and triumphant career. Just to show you what I mean, let's look at some of today's leading men. I saw Charles Bronson in a movie recently where Charles, certainly a fine actor, nearly playing what the public wants him to play, grabbed a beautiful girl, pulled her out of a room, belted her in the chops, and threw her down 3 flights of stairs. And this was the love scene. Jimmy may have hemmed and hawed, but he never hit. And Burt Reynolds, one of the very best of our newer stars, when he plays a cop, he jumps into his cruiser car, drives 100 miles an hour, firing away with a submachine gun, smashing and crashing 50 cars, buses, and trucks on the way, just so when he catches the guy, he can give him a citation for blowing his horn in a hospital zone. That's what's happening on the silver screen today. By now, we can see how much we needed that soft-spoken, shy, kind-hearted fellow that Jimmy Stewart plays. No brutality for Jimmy, no sir. And as for mindless violence, why, even in Jimmy's picture called The FBI Story, which sounds like a perfect excuse for gunfire, car smashing, well, Jimmy did it the decent way in one scene while he was chasing John Dillinger, that notorious criminal, had a flat tire on his sedan, and instead of smashing into Dillinger, Jimmy got out of his car, looked the villain straight in the eye, and fixed the flat. Jimmy, to use a metaphor, the movie industry is, well, it's sometimes called a jungle, but I think it's a forest. A forest made up of 1 million different plants and trees and shrubs. And some of these plants have a brief day in the sun. They flower quickly, but they can't seem to sustain, so they wither away. Hollywood has seen a lot of these. But a career like yours, Jimmy, is an evergreen. It's rain or shine, it keeps growing because it has a kind of beauty and purpose that will never die. That's what we've always seen in you, something that will be here when all the fads and fancies are long gone. As an image, Jimmy Stewart is indelible. As an actor, well, I saw him on the stage in New York long before he went to Hollywood, or long before Hollywood got him. No, that's wrong. Hollywood never got Jimmy Stewart. He was the conqueror. He was and is superb. And I use that word very carefully. I pause for a parenthesis. I'm the only actor on this podium who has not attempted to imitate you, Jimmy, because in my view, that's all we can do.
And now it's my pleasure to present our man of the hour. When you think about Jimmy Stewart, you think about 2 words: feeling good. Because Jimmy has left America feeling good for a long time. There are many performers in this business that we like. Jimmy is one of the rare ones that we love. He's got that certain honest and straightforward way that lets you know he's one of us. And this is reflected in the way he's lived. A heroic career in the service of his country, a wonderful family man, a concerned citizen. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm so proud to have for a pal our man of the hour, a great American, Mr. Jimmy Stewart.
Before I get started with this sort of answering the roast type thing, I've sort of been overcome by this last few minutes here, so I just am bound to say this. I'm very proud of what you said, Orson, and I'm very grateful to you, and I'll always be grateful. And it was wonderful of you to choose this time to say it, and I'll never forget it. Thank you. And Dean, also with you, you kind of read it all right and everything, and it seemed very nice, and I just want you to know that I appreciate it, and I'm very grateful to you for the things you said, and thank you. Now, about this roast here, when Dean first invited me to appear at this as guest of honor on this roast, I said, all right, now I'll do it on one condition, that the evening should be conducted with a level of taste and propriety. And Dean said, well, don't worry about that. No, everything, it'll be a cultural dais. So far this evening has been as cultural as looking at the famous golden mask of King Tut and finding the words made in Japan. I'm grateful, and I'm grateful that you all came. Particularly some of my old friends. I like Eddie Albert. Right now, Eddie is one of the hottest actors in Hollywood. His good looks and his talents are opening doors, and every big producer in town wants to hire him. Unfortunately, I'm talking about his son, Eddie Albert Jr. Eddie, I don't know, maybe if I was you, maybe I'd kind of forget about green acres and maybe start thinking a little bit about green pastures, huh? Anyway, and there's Mickey Rooney, a lovable little leprechaun. I tell you, he's really got away with women. It's expensive, but it's a way. Wait a minute, Dean. Dean, I can't go on with this. All these insults and sarcastic remarks. Dean, I just would it be possible? Could you stand up and sort of help me with this thing? I don't. Would you?
Okay, anything you say, I'll try. Okay. The insurance company isn't watching because my policy says I'm not covered for standing.
Well, anyway, I guess I'll just thank my friends, and then you can sing them from there.
You mean like, remember the famous words of Billy Graham, who once said, if the good Lord meant for us to walk around in the nude, he'd have never created Ruth Buzzy?
That's it. That's exactly what I had in mind. I could never have said that Miss Buzzy was frightening, no matter how I believed. I'm here to take Red buttons, and it's nice seeing you here, Red. Dean?
Well, I'll tell you. Red's the only man I know who ever went to the Salvation Army and never got a dinner. Not only that, he once went to a house of ill repute and never got a sinner.
Yes, you see how good it is when your hit man's an Italian? Senator Goldwater, I'm honored by your presence.
The senator is a great believer in solar energy. He just hired Farrah Fawcett to sit on his roof.
Now, George Burns is amazing, isn't he? Even though he's in his 80s, he thinks young.
It's true. Who else would spray Brute on his polygrip?
And, of course, I never get tired of Rich Little. He does such wonderful impressions. Dean?
Well, he's been doing Richard Nixon so long. Last night he erased 18 minutes out of his act.
I've always thought LaWanda Page was funny. She attacks sort of like Don Rickles.
Well, if this country does give up the Panama Canal, Preston Carter is thinking of using LaWanda Page's mouth as an alternate route.
It's been nice seeing Jess White. You know, we toured Harvey together, and of course, all of you know him from his Maytag commercials. Dean?
He's the only man I know who ever had a romantic relationship with a washer and a dryer.
Hardly anybody can match Henry Fonda's contribution to the motion picture industry and the theater. Dean?
Yeah, when he checked in last night and was walking through the lobby, all the people were pointing at him saying, "There goes Jane Fonda's father."
Well, it's so good to see Lucille Ball here. Dean?
Oh, she's not really here. She's a rerun.
I've always loved that gorgeous red hair.
I often wonder if that red hair is her natural color. I guess it would take Alex Haley to find her real roots, huh?
I think you can handle Foster Brooks without any problems, Dean.
Oh, well, poor Foster. He can't even call up Alcoholic Anonymous anymore. His breath melts the foam.
And I watched Tony Randall on his new show, and he's very good as a judge, Dean.
Yeah, last week on his show, he said to a woman attorney, "I'd like to see your briefs."
Yeah. Besides being beautiful, both Janet Leigh and Greer Garson are very strong for women's equality, Dean.
They're all wrong about women being equal to men. I'm sorry, but I just can't look at Raquel Welch as just another one of those guys.
Will you help me say something?
Sure, yeah.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Dean?
Good night, everybody.
That's exactly right.